Mission Impossible Final Reckoning, $400 million budget, the end of a behemoth of a series and an all-star cast. Was it any good? Fred's watched them all now. I watched just the latest one. We're going to non-spoiler review this film, and then we'll finish with a definitive final score. To get things kicked off, the gut reaction round.
Ooh.
How much did we enjoy this film? Fred first, out of 10, to one decimal place. 3, 2, 1.
4.2.
Oh, 6.0.
Okay.
So if you really love this film, probably just stop listening now because we're not going to be very nice
We're going
to
to try non-spoilers as well.
Non-spoilers.
For as long as we can hold them in.
Okay, so you've gone through... how many of the ones have you watched recently? How many Mission Impossible films have you watched in the last month?
In the last week, I've watched 4.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
So 4.2, is that an accumulation of the previous 4 that you've just watched?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
But I would give it more benefit of the doubt if there was more variety. The issue with the Mission Impossibles is they found a formula which they have used, I mean, almost comically within every... Like, there are so many elements borrowed from each of the other ones that it becomes... It's basically Mission Impossible is Tom Cruise single-handedly waging a war against the concept of diminishing returns.
Yeah, that seems fair. Yeah.
And so if you've watched all of them, it does become quite tiring. And in this one specifically, they've really got to the point where he seems to be enjoying the smell of his own farts.
Okay.
Like, I will try not to avoid spoiling, but if you've seen any of the others, it's getting to this point anyway. The last couple, Ethan Hunt's become sort of a mythic figure within American intelligence circles and the wider, I don't know, global the global anti-hero space or the nefarious villain network. There are a tenner penny. He's a big cog in the wheel, and there's a part, like the first 10 minutes or so is pretty much just the greatest hits of what's happened so far recap. So 4.2, I've tried to, like, this is gut reaction. So obviously I was influenced by the fact that I've watched so many of this, but really the reason why I did not give it much benefit of the doubt at all is because it's got such a form, it's so formulaic that it's hard to enjoy. Like, there's only so much the stakes can be raised if they've done it every single time to a climax, and then he's come back down to earth, and then they say, scrap that. Yes, it happened, but actually there's a bigger evil, there's a bigger villain, worse than anything you've seen. There's a hotter love interest than the last one who we killed or we got rid of.
But we're still sad
Don't
about.
worry about that. Yeah, I can even tell you the formula, which I'll go through in a moment.
Yeah,
but
so this is like, it's not really
this is general
spoilers.
Formula.
If you've seen one of them, you've seen them all, sort of spoiler.
Would you like me to go through that?
Let's hear the formula.
Here's the general formula for any Mission Impossible film. So we've just had a catastrophic world-ending event that we managed to avert. Crisis averted.
Thank goodness.
Now, whether it was yesterday or last year, Ethan Hunt is a recluse.
Good man.
Again.
Okay.
Even though he seemed to be in quite a happy place at the end of the last one. Some sort of recluse now. We've got an otherworldly secret enemy, potentially linked to the last one we had in the previous film, or just one that's way worse for some reason. Also prone to retconning some link to Ethan's backstory, which is not foreshadowed in any of the previous films. Then this becomes a clear issue that there's another catastrophe waiting to happen.
Oh, bugger.
Ethan goes up against the top brass. So the top brass are involved, tip top of the Central Intelligence Agency or the wider US government Secret Service.
Some suits.
And typically these people will be manifested in the form of maybe one individual who's like a paternal sort of figure with ambiguous morality and objectives. And this person will dislike, admire, and fear Ethan Hunt.
Okay.
In a mixture of all three at different points. So what will typically happen is this person will either disavow Tom Cruise or will treat him as the only person he can trust in the world. And similarly, Tom Cruise's approach to this person or people is equally
I love how this is
translucent.
I love how this has become Tom Cruise rather than Ethan Hunt.
Yeah. Well, this is
Then
the kicker.
Tom turns up.
This is the kicker for the
Sorry, yeah, go on.
Impossible Mission Force. They go rogue
Oh,
every
do
time. They always go rogue.
Now there's a
They
surprise.
always go rogue, or they're in this weird in-between space of being rogue. Quite often they are framed for something. And it turns out that, inexplicably, because this happens every single film, they are... The thoughts of the government and the leaders is actually maybe they are the mastermind after all this time, even though this has been disproved every single
From
world
8
ending
films
about.
now.
So then this is the point in the film where they might introduce a love interest. She may have to, in order to keep Ethan Hunt's...
No, I like the Tom Cruise.
In order to keep Ethan Hunt's like appeal as like the world's best man, typically they'll kill his previous love interest. They won't just have that he's like interested in multiple people. He'll have to have a catastrophic death. That sometimes happens in the film. Sometimes they're just
flashbacks
death, or she's just no longer in the picture anymore for one reason or many. Then the team plans a heist. That heist will always involve doing exactly what the villain wants.
Okay.
And that is the kicker for them. Every time they're like, wait, so we're just going to do exactly what they want us to do. They go, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Every time they do exactly what they want, but it's all part of the plan. Added to that, they'll do exactly what they want. They'll typically involve Tom Cruise running about. He's always running.
He's quite quick, though, to be fair to him. Watching him run, he's rapid.
Yeah.
He never gets out of breath.
There will always be a moment in the plan where they have to work it out.
Work it out.
And they will say that phrase. They'll go, we'll work it out. I'll work it out.
Yeah.
They'll be like, wait, but how are we going to do this thing that we can't do? We'll work it out. And they always work it out. In this film, this drove the score down for me, was the fact that more than any other, they tried to get away with doing everything they'd done by saying how crazy it was that it was such a pattern of behaviour. So you may have noticed that every time they do something which they've done before, they went, God, this happens every single time.
Yeah.
And so you're like, yeah, but that doesn't forgive the fact that you're doing it. So they did that. They're like, that's just what we do. Yeah, that's how it works around here.
You'll never guess.
Yeah, so that happens every time. Then there's always a countdown.
I thought it was
usually several countdowns in the
not
whole
particularly well justified in this film. It's just like there's a clock and that counts down to a time.
The thing that the Mission Impossible films feel like is like a time capsule for 2000s films, early 2000s, where there was always, if there was some sort of action film, there was a ticking clock on the bomb.
Yeah.
They don't do that anymore because everyone's like, why wouldn't they just have like a switch that turns the bomb on? Why would they put a 15-minute timer on? Like, let's stop trying to justify the timer.
Yeah.
And so it's really like an archaic plot device.
But with like modern technology.
But then
and
Tom
budgets
is kind of the last real action movie star
from that era.
Well, just generally, there aren't many like doing it like that. Even like newer ones like The Rock is getting a bit tired now. Tom Cruise is he's still going strong.
He's 63, you know.
Yeah, he's old, and that will actually play a part into my segment later.
Okay.
And then okay, so the countdown starts. There's some sort of impossible stunt fight, which is always bigger than the last one. And at the end, with 0.02 seconds, something happens.
Okay.
That saves the day. And then rinse, repeat. Literally rinse, repeat for as many of these as you want to do.
Okay, so I'll put this to you then. Yes, the packaging, the way that they package it is incredibly like off-the-shelf textbook and repeated. Specifically, it's repeated.
They've got this formula, and that's what they're going to go with.
Do you think it's fair to say that is justified if the thing that we are trying to deliver is not in fact a story, but Tom Cruise jumping on planes and shit, and it doesn't really matter how we get there?
It felt to me, watching a lot of these, that it was like a TV show. It was a big budget TV show, but not the sort of TV show where you respected the story.
Yeah, I mean, the story was absolutely atrocious. I was really excited at the start when it was talking about AI being the bad guy.
Okay.
That's not a spoiler, that's in the trailer.
Yeah, that's fine.
And it won't spoil it to say this. I was I just feel like they just didn't utilize what could have been a very interesting. Like I was like, why are they going down this it was very textbook, right? One of my reviews, I gave it 6.0, right? And one of the things I wrote during it was, this is the perfect film. And by that, what I mean is, like, there wasn't a breath wasted in the 3 hours. Every single line of dialogue perfectly followed the next one. Every single shot perfectly had only the things it needed in it. It was like watching a trailer for 3 hours. It was insane. It was like watching a comic book that cost $300 million to make. Like, it was just fucking perfect constantly, and it just felt so inauthentic because of it.
Yeah, and you're not going in for authenticity, to be fair to
no, of course not. But 3 hours, it starts to really, really drain you. I found. I tried to do some preparation for this episode by watching the penultimate film.
Oh, right.
And I got 20 minutes in, and I was like, I can just see that this is exactly how this film is going to go on for the whole time.
It is mind-blowing.
Like, they literally, the way that the dialogue moves between them, where one will say something and then the other will say something immediately after, and then they like pass the baton around. I was going to give
you that example. So we can kind of spoil the film before, and it's not a spoiler, it's literally just one scene from the film before, near the start, that I think you're referring to, is they basically are in a briefing room with like the top brass again, and they are explaining to this guy who Ethan Hunt is and what is going on right now with this AI supervillain. Yep. And instead of getting one person talk him through what had happened, they decided instead to have 6 people in the room, each alternating lines as if it was as if it was one person talking, but they are like snapping between lines,
like really quickie, short lines.
It's as if it's a block of text that one person is saying, except without missing a beat, they are interchanging between 6
and not just one
people.
person is saying. It's one person like just blatantly fucking laying everything out to you. Like they're not even trying to hide it. They're just like here, and they did it like every 45 minutes, every half an hour, they'd give you a quick recap of everything expositionally in one of these dialogue scenes, which was kind of useful because coming into the final reckoning, having not watched any of them, having like those constant reminders of like, what the fuck's going on here? Like, I can tell it's obviously just big bad guy, stakes bad, Tom Cruise good, let's jump off shit and blow stuff up. But it kind of helped for somebody like myself who'd never watched any of them.
If you haven't,
the relentless exposition.
If you haven't, and there is fast pace. It's relentless, but it's fast paced.
That was why I said it was the perfect film. Was one of the other things that, and I say that ironically because like I actually didn't like it very much, but it was, the storytelling was so textbook. It was like, we are going to just, every single scene is going to have like some kind of tension in it. We're going to set you up with a problem. We're going to create the tension. Then there's going to be this exciting climax, and it's going to get us closer somehow to the next thing. And then we'll lay out the next problem, and the stakes will get even bigger. And then we'll have another big problem. And it's just like tension, stakes, build, repeat until we get to the final thing. And it was just like so mechanical. It was so like sequential.
Yeah.
The dialogue, the storytelling, everything was just like it had been templated. Almost exactly like what you're saying.
Oh, for
and
sure.
I've only watched one of them, and I was like, this is fucking templated. This is fractally templated. This isn't even just across the films. Within the film, they are repeating the same fucking thing.
Literally, that is like, I mean, obviously for effect, I've kind of blurred the lines on some parts here, but genuinely, there are so many other, when I went through that overview of how a typical plot goes, what the formula is, that is it. And they just add other things that they have throughout each, which it wasn't even worth me bringing up. But it is insane, and it really does mean, if you've watched a lot of them, which I don't know if anyone will do a watch along before watching this, but for me it meant I really struggled because they're all the same film, and the biggest issue that it causes is stakes. Like, they just have nowhere to go. Like, every time they have to work out a way of topping what they did before.
It's so empty.
And also every time, because of the arc that the IMF goes through, requires them to basically be like go rogue part and be disavowed by the government.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, they basically have to bring in new people who don't trust them. Like, almost every film or couple of films. Because what they'll typically do is they'll bring someone new in, and then by the end of that film, they'll start trusting them. And then that person kind of has to die so they can get someone else in who doesn't trust, so they can get disavowed and go rogue again. Because they need to go rogue in every film. It's imperative that they go rogue. Because Tom Cruise knows better than everyone else in the whole world. He's the only person who can effectively stop these villains.
Take ridiculous risks. Take under his own, he's just going to go, I'm going to take this risk for the planet. And it's like, well, hang on a fucking minute. This is a ridiculous risk.
All the people who disavow him are completely justified.
Your fucking plan comes down to taking a light bulb out in 0.01 seconds. Sorry.
Right. Don't spoil anything. No spoilers. But basically, what I would say, and I'm not able to come at this with a fresh... I'm not able to come at this as someone who's not watched all of them recently, but... I imagine I'd have enjoyed it quite a lot more if I wasn't really familiar with how they go about it.
It's funny because I was going to come into this and say 6.0 didn't really like it, but there were some saving things. But I think if I'd have watched the other stuff, maybe I would have enjoyed it more.
No, I think you'd have enjoyed it way less because they do a great job of just recapping everything for you.
They did.
Like, you don't feel... Did you feel lost at any point?
No. And it's like you say, the recap... You know how I said it is like a trailer? Like, you could literally have taken any 3-minute section from it and it would have made a trailer. It had an action sequence in it. It had quippy dialogue in it. It was perfect. And it had exposition in it. It's like, great,
They
trailer.
did a good job. To be fair, they did a good job.
Also, so you got the first few minutes of intro and then out of nowhere comes an intro sequence. I haven't seen an intro sequence in forever.
Yeah, nice.
I was kind of happy about that. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, the Mission Impossible intro sequence.
James Bond maybe was the last intro sequence I've seen.
Yeah, the Mission Impossible is because they're from that bygone era of still doing intros.
Still doing intros and countdowns.
And it's such a famous intro because it's a dun 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 dun.
Yeah. I did want to circle back to the stakes because it is a problem that they keep upping the stakes, and how do you go about upping them further, right? But I do actually think there is a way of doing that. Throughout the films, presumably you can verify this, they will usually pick the biggest bad guy as whatever the globe's concern is at that point. And so at this point, it's AI, right? Everyone's a bit worried about AI. So it's like, okay, well, that's going to be the big bad threat of the film. You know, we'll have a human element. And... yeah, okay, if you really, really want to go into the film and not know anything, then maybe tune out. I'm not going to spoil it, but they basically just go, AI has taken over everything and it'll set off some nukes. That's the full extent of the stakes. And it's like, actually, you could take AI and give us stakes that felt real if you'd have taken the time to explore how those stakes actually manifest with something like AI when it gets this out of control. But it didn't. It just went AI bad, nukes bad, go.
Yeah, and funnily enough, it did actually do less... It did, I guess, a slightly more interesting thing in the previous film where all of their communications were disrupted because it was deep faking everything.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
and you couldn't trust anything.
Yeah.
And I mean, it wasn't done in a way where you're like, this is really smart, but it was a bit more, it was a bit more inventive than what they were doing in this one, which was literally this a big overarching villain, which has got our nukes held to ransom. And we know, and we've got a countdown. That's it. We've got the biggest countdown you've ever seen.
Countdown clock.
What if we do a bigger clock? That was their stakes in this one. And look, it must be hard if you're like, they just refuse not to commission more Mission Impossible films, or Tom Cruise refuses not to stop doing them. And you are writing these films thinking, how do we top? Like, they had like world-ending stakes. Like, this is going to stop human existence is in peril in the second film.
Where the fuck do you go from that?
I mean, what are you supposed to do?
but like I say,
the second film is the worst.
I get the predicament that they're
Maybe,
in.
actually. I'm starting to really not enjoy them at the moment, but...
Yeah, I do get the predicament they're in. I get why it'd be difficult to keep up in the stakes when everyone has to feel so grand. But like I say, I think that the stakes could have felt like more dangerous if they'd have spent like any time at all like exploring the details of like what these stakes are beyond a clock, AI and nuclear bombs.
I've thought of a way to make it more interesting, having wasted so many hours of my life on these films. And it would be, and this is actually the way that the market is going, I think, artistically, is you are finding more nuanced, emotionally complex characters leading films. And Tom Cruise is from a background of, ultimate good, ultimate bad, good guys and bad guys.
Yeah.
And that's what served him very well. Unfortunately, I think this film is doing very well, and they've all done very well.
Yeah.
But I think if he had decided to, and by the way, this is a trope for all of these films, which I didn't add, but I'll just tell you now. Tom Cruise he'll experience loss in these, but he'll never have to make a morally ambiguous decision.
Yeah, okay.
He'll never have to do anything for the greater good.
He'll be in an
unwinnable situation in every film, and every time, if he doesn't come out of it with a way of winning that was unknown, it won't be his fault if someone dies.
Right.
No matter how much they say it was your fault, it won't be his fault. It won't be. So he is always like our good guy.
He's perfect. He's just too perfect.
Rather than, I think if you got to the point, the stakes are so high now that it's just numb for us as an audience.
Yeah.
So how about, if we actually put Ethan Hunt in a situation where he had to save the world by sacrificing someone, or he had to do what the president was going to do. Yeah. Oh, sorry, spoilers.
You didn't spoil it there.
Okay, well, I won't spoil this, but there is an option in this film for a morally grey decision for the greater good.
Yeah.
And
it's cool.
That would have been really interesting. I don't know if it would have saved the film from my perspective, but that would be something. If you are worried about how we top stakes, why don't we actually add some depth to the character?
I think it's just a major blind spot to the films, isn't it? Is that they've got this kind of character which is just not complicated because it's just they're always perfect and good, i.e. Ethan Hunt. So yeah, I do think that would probably.
I've got a question for you then. So how long are we on time?
We're on 20 minutes.
20 minutes. Okay. Do you want to keep talking about the film, or should we?
Is there anything else that you wanted to say?
I had some questions for you, but I think we kind of.
Sorry, we've torn it to shreds, so I figured maybe we should say something nice about it.
Yes, I do.
Because
have
there were
nice
good
points.
things.
Yes, so it would do worse for me if I didn't enjoy the. I thought the set pieces on this one were really good. Even compared to what is a phenomenal film series for set pieces.
Yeah.
I don't want to go into what happens in this one, but I really did. I felt the tension, and as well as that, I thought it kind of went by quite quickly, which is for me a good indicator that I did enjoy it to some extent.
Yeah, okay. It went pretty slowly for me, actually. I really felt like I was watching a trailer for 3 hours.
It's the music, isn't it, as well, that doesn't help in that, because the music is so trailer music.
But I tell you what, I won't ever get bored of seeing Tom Cruise literally on the side of a plane. That is cool.
Doing things, yeah.
The stunts that they do, that is something that they bring that most other films don't bring to that standard.
Yeah, and he's just trying to complete life at this point.
Yeah.
And he's
pretty
much has.
It's enjoyable to watch those parts of that film. That's something I liked.
Yeah, agreed. And one question for you then. So you like your alpha, stoic, world on their shoulders protagonists. How does Ethan Hunt stack up against other favourites of yours? Like your Maximus's, Kurt Russell's characters?
Oh, not very well, to be honest.
No.
With you.
Why do you think that is?
I think it comes across as cheesy. I think that it's funnily enough, Gladiator doesn't, and it comes from that era of that period. But those 2000s films, those action films, they don't feel cool. They feel cheesy to me. And Ethan Hunt is very much like that. He's trying too hard to be charming, rather than like a bit kind of, I think brooding tends to work better than like, you know, when they slap each other on the shoulder and they have like that perfect textbook 2-line banter to establish that they're friends. And it's just, it feels so cheap and cheesy that it's just like, there's no.
It becomes more of a
nuance.
question of Tom Cruise as an action star, doesn't it? Because
Yeah.
I agree with you completely. And I think it's because he just doesn't carry it. Like Tom Cruise has been now in some of the most successful action films of all time. He's one of the most successful action film stars of all time.
Easily.
And yet, certainly I would never have him in my pantheon of great action movie stars.
It depends a bit if you take into consideration the execution of the stunts, obviously. But in terms of his acting ability, in terms of the character that he creates on the screen, one of my least favorite.
Well, he doesn't ever. It's not like he shows range between his action stars. He is Tom, but that's not. To be honest, that's most action stars are known for. They're typecast.
Yeah.
So that's fine. But I find that what he is as an action star, he just doesn't embody what I need.
Yeah, I agree.
For my action stars to be people that are like, oh, I want to be that guy.
I know,
like
yeah,
he has
exactly
in a childish sense, like, wow, look at that guy. What
in awe.
Yeah, exactly. Like in awe of what he can do.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise, I'm like, it feels like you go there like, maybe I could do that. Which is insane.
I've been a bit embarrassed.
Which is insane considering what's going on.
Yeah. One last thing I'd say before we wrap up and move into the main Eye Machine Room then. Visually, I quite liked it. I would say it was akin to there was something kind of YouTube thumbnail feel about it visually, in that if you watch it after me pointing this out, it'll probably become a bit clearer to you. But a YouTube thumbnail, I said this is the perfect film. I stand by it. It doesn't waste any space at all, right? Every single inch of it does something to help explain what is going on. And there is no detail outside of that whatsoever.
Okay.
And it can be quite visually pleasing. But this film, it very much had that. So every single shot for the entirety of the movie looked like it had been on a storyboard and then put on to the big screen using whatever filming techniques they used, and reality just didn't seep into it. And it had these kind of very pretty, well-balanced, colorful storytelling imagery throughout the whole thing that also just did not feel in the slightest bit real. And I kind of liked it, but it just continued to compound on that thing that I didn't like about the film, which is that it just didn't feel like a real thing at all. It was just like, here is some textbook dialogue with some textbook stakes and some textbook tension and some textbook everything and some textbook visuals.
Yeah, it was sort of like if someone at a film school or a writing school went, rustle me up an action film.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
And they got good marks. They're like, yeah, that's good
and they had
job.
a massive budget and not a lot of time.
Yeah,
so
yeah, but it's more just
put
like,
a car
this is-
there so they know that we're in a garage. Right, okay, I guess we'll just do that.
Yeah.
Then. Yeah, so I thought it was pretty. Like, I quite liked the way it looked. It just still didn't quite work because it was too perfect. Everything was just too seamless. It was the most efficient film I've ever seen in my life. Nothing was wasted in it. Not a single second of air was used on anything other than exposition or tension or stakes or whatever.
Yeah.
Which just didn't feel very real.
Agreed.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't watch this one.
I wouldn't recommend it.
Nah, even if you have watched them or if you haven't.
Who cares? In a year, right, go on YouTube and look at the stunts, because they're pretty cool.
Stunts good.
Yeah, but don't bother with the film.
But even the stunts, like, they peaked when he was on the Burj Khalifa.
Yeah, that was cool, yeah. Yeah,
which was the fourth film.
Yeah.
And then I think they like the first film, they did him wire down, and had to not sweat on the thing. And that was the famous, like, you know, where he's in that frog pose, like,
Yeah.
very famous.
Yeah.
But then they got to
Cool
the fourth
stunt.
film and they were like, okay, Burj Khalifa.
Very cool.
And I think Tom was like, I need to match the buzz that was made around that. Is like, I need to do this every time. And so then I remember when the other one's coming out, like Rogue Nation came out, and like, I'm on the plane this time. It's even bigger than the one that I did on the Burj Khalifa. It's like he was just chasing the dragon of the Burj Khalifa. Is that what it's called?
Burj Khalifa, yeah, it is.
You know when a word goes weird in your head.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that.
Yeah.
Don't watch it.
Yeah, don't watch it. We've spent this entire time tearing it to shreds. Maybe 6.0 was higher than. I think I was afraid to go lower than it because the world seems to like it. By the way, it's doing pretty well.
Yeah, not for me, but fair enough.
We're gonna slip into the Mate Night Machine room. We'll grapple down.
Yeah, we'll give our final reckoning.
Yeah. Oh.
We'll speak to an algorithm.
We will speak to the entity and
speak to the entity. Murder a hot woman.
Fred mine.
But the algorithm might.
And we'll come back with the correct score for this
with
film.
the correct, yeah.
Fucking God, no.
I'm coming to the surface.
He's chasing me. There's nukes. There's a clock. There's a countdown.
Oh no.
Fuck.
There's always a fucking countdown.
Okay, so we've got back from the Mate Night Machine room. We have.
You counted everyone this
We've
time.
asked the entity. We've
last time you missed one.
I've missed the odd one in the past, but not this time.
Not this time.
And I don't do anything because it is the Mate Night entity that does it. So we have got a final correct score for Mission Impossible, which has taken everything into consideration. So
nothing missed.
Without further ado, Mission Impossible: Final Reckoning, the 8th film in the series. Out of 10, 5.24.
That's pretty low.
It's a pretty bad film, though, isn't it, Fred?
For a Mate Night score, that's pretty low. I think it's pretty justified.
Actually, it looks like there's another film just near it with 5.24 exactly. Want to take a guess?
Bend It Like Beckham.
Trap. We love Trap. We look back on it so fondly.
Trap was fondly remembered.
Trap got much higher on the gut reactions than Mission Impossible, but it just didn't do very well.
You're talking about having bad dialogue in Mission Impossible.
Yeah, that might have been unethical, but yeah, I think there were not that many redeeming factors. I think is the problem. There was no taste whatsoever in any of it. So, but there was even the stunts, which were the best bit. There wasn't really any taste. It was just like, how big can we make it? Which was cool, but there was no taste.
Yeah, definitely way less cool if you've watched them all in a week. I'll tell you, you get tired of this shtick pretty quickly.
So what we're going to do, we'll leave it there on the YouTube. We'll leave it there on the review. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to check us out on your favorite podcast platforms because we will be there. That's Mate Night. We are reviewing films until someone invites us to the road to Cannes. Later on in this episode, we have Freddie's segment, and we are almost out of time, so that will be it.
That'll do. That'll do, donkey.